Dawson Creek acknowledges that we are privileged to live and work on Treaty 8 territory in the traditional home of the Cree, Dunazay, Saulteaux, Sicanee, and Slavey First Nations. We value the Métis peoples that live and gather here. We commit to upholding a respectful relationship these nations have built with the land, and we acknowledge our responsibility to carry that forward today and into the future. Next order of business, 2 delegations. 2.1, we have Kyle McDonald here on behalf of, as well as the councillor, Northern BC Crime Stoppers in attendance regarding the proclamation to declare January 2025 as Crime Stoppers Month in Dawson Creek. So, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Whereas the Northern BC Crime Stopper Society operates as a non-profit organization serving communities throughout northern British Columbia, and whereas each January, Crime Stoppers program around the world celebrate Crime Stoppers Month to highlight their achievement and contributions. And whereas criminal activities such as drug trafficking, human trafficking, physical violence, property theft, organized crime, money laundering, and fraud undermine the health and economic vitality of communities across northern British Columbia. And whereas concerned citizens throughout northern British Columbia provided tips in 2024 enabling law enforcement to prevent, solve, and reduce crime in our communities. Now therefore, I, Darcy Dober, Mayor of the City of Dawson Creek, do hereby proclaim January 2025 as Crime Stoppers Month in the City of Dawson Creek, and encourage all citizens to join me in recognizing and supporting this worthy observance. And it's an honor to do it today with yourself.
Thank you.
I know you've been a huge advocate for Crime Stoppers, and I know you're taking a role with them and helping bring it back to British Columbia. So Dawson Creek is definitely grateful and in a better place for your contributions and efforts to move it forward. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
So,
appreciate that.
yeah, you bet. I'll sign this. Did you want to add a few things?
Just
I'll give you this mic here. Just for those that are.
all right. Thank you, sir. So just to give some basic numbers of things we've achieved in the last year with Northern BC Crime Stoppers. We received a total of 997 tips from residents of Northern BC and Central BC, from Williams Lake North to Prince Rupert and all the way to Dawson Creek. In 2024, we recovered $11,000 in property. We helped seize $300,000 in drugs. We helped recover $75,000 in cash for a total recovery of $371,400. Since 1985, because this is the 40th year anniversary of Northern BC Crime Stoppers, we've helped recover over $39 million in cash, drugs seized, and commercial assets, or just property.
Wow.
All in all. And that is through the direct help of residents of Dawson Creek and all across northern BC. So thank you very much for the recognition this month. We really appreciate it. Please don't forget, Crime Stoppers is still out there, is a viable source for any information you have to be shared anonymously with our RCMP.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's amazing. So, thanks for sharing the stats. That's pretty impressive.
It is.
40 million.
Right?
In 40 years. I could shut this off. There we go. I want to get a picture. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Super appreciate it.
All right. Next order of business is 2025 strategic priority chart. No updates on here. Is there any questions from council? No, we obviously have our strategic priority going on next week, but Kevin, do you have something on it?
Through your worship, I was just going to highlight, yes, the 21st, we were going to have our review, our check-in on the strategic priorities. So that was all I got to mention.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, when will we be receiving material about that, or is it just going to be handed out on the day? And I'm just wondering, because it can become quite a cumbersome process. So how are we going to what are your plans, I guess I'm asking for, and what material might we be receiving to ahead of the meeting?
So, through your worship, what the plan is obviously we'll review the existing strategic plan, just do a quick check-in, make sure, see if there's any, what council's feelings, if it's still relevant, those types of things. Obviously, we've had some items that were brought forward by councillors that have been moved to that, so we've got some new items. It'll also be an opportunity for any other councillors, if there's some thoughts of any other items that they may want to talk about. And then really a bit of a process of unpacking that and determining whether there needs to be additions, subtractions, trades, whatever, because it all comes down to resources, right? And so our current strategic plan is fairly robust, and so there's really no ability to add. So if we're going to be making changes, it's going to be things coming off and new things going on. So so as far as materials in advance, what we can provide is we can send out obviously the existing plan, just so everybody's got it, it's fresh, and then the items that we've received that have been moved for new topics, new items that are going to be discussed.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor
Yeah.
Parslow.
So will staff have some recommendations for, I'm going to say deletion, for want of a better word, because since that strategic plan, there have been new items come along, such as water. And the concern, I think, was that we couldn't do it all. And so I'm just wondering if to expedite things possibly, you might have a set of draft suggestions because I think the desire is that we adjust the strat plan to reflect changed circumstances and look to making it so that it is doable, with a reasonable amount of luck and good work it could be achieved, but not place an unrealistic set of expectations that we don't have the resources to possibly do it.
Yeah. So I've asked my staff to take a look at their particular areas of the plan, identify any that that have that opportunity, maybe because we haven't started them as of yet, there's been no action, or maybe for some other reasons, like, again, there may be some changes. So we're going to have those identified so that if there are some changes or whatever, that those are discussion points.
Okay, one last point, if I may, then it relates to strat planning. The sub-recreational, the sub-rec, and the airport, possible regional airport fund. I know that, is there an update? Do you have some meetings arranged with Saddle Hills, presentation to regional district? I know there's been talked about.
Yep.
And what's going on with the sub-rec, not the sub-rec, the regional airport stuff?
Yeah. So sub-regional rec, we have set up some meetings with some area directors and Village of Poos, so that'll be happening fairly soon. The regional airport discussion is we had met with some rural directors and some regional municipality representatives some time ago, but hasn't moved too far.
I can add a little bit. That's probably about a year ago. We met with pretty much everybody in the South Peace regional directors and the municipalities. But yeah, I don't know how much the likelihood of it going regional. The airport. It's from that conversation. There's definitely, it's a regional airport in use, but I don't know where it would go from there. I think it's still an avenue to explore, but to look at moving it from in the city to regional. I mean, yeah, it's tough. Might make sense to us, right? But there was some talk about getting other services in there and providers that were regional, and you know, we get the medevacs and that it's there, that's parts there regionally, but yeah, there's not, yeah.
Well, now's not the time, but I know there's been efforts, don't get me wrong, I'm not being critical here, but one of the things that I think we're all pleased about is the rural health hub. But one of the main outlets, or as part of the medical support systems, is Medivac.
Yeah.
And so we've got people embracing the rural South Peace Health Hub, if I can call it that, and maybe have another title. But they won't embrace a key release valve where people who've been in need of evacuation, I mean, that's one of the main pillars of our health system is Medivac. Totally frustrating.
Yeah, I hear you and understand it for sure. So.
It doesn't endear me to local elected officials.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Any other comments on the strategic priorities? No. All right. Next, 4 late items. I don't think there's any late items. 5, new councillor business. Councillor Kaempf, before I just get to that one, I just wanted to let you know when we do the vote on the computer, there is a few different things. So I just wanted to thank Janice and Tab and the team for making some changes. So it's just been changed to it'll be yes or no instead of plus and minus. There was a bit of confusion on voting. And then the other thing is we're going to bring the motions up on the screen as well. So the other thing too is I just wanted to mention to council when we're going through and having long dialogue on things, if you don't feel that you know what you're voting on, just flag me or tell me, or so we can reread the motions out just so that everybody's clear, but just don't feel like you can't point things out to me as well. So I just wanted to mention that. So. And then 5.1, memo from Councillor Kaempf regarding the 2025 council meeting schedule, accommodating non-instructional days for April 7th and May 5th. Councillor Kaempf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll read the motion and I can speak to it after if it's needed. I propose that Council authorizes an amendment to the 2025 council meeting schedule by moving the council meeting schedule for Monday, April 7th to Tuesday, April 8th, and the council meeting scheduled for Monday, May 5th to Tuesday, May 6th.
Thank you, Councillor Kaempf. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to, back when the school schedule went out in August, I noticed there may have been some conflictions with a few of the council meetings being on the Monday NID days. And I look at those as bonus days with my kids. So I'm just wondering if this amendment is a possibility at all.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kaempf. For me personally, I'm in favor of it as long as for other councillors that have, hold jobs that they're able to take those days off and it doesn't cause any conflict for them moving it from a Monday to Tuesday. That would be the only reason why I wouldn't be, but besides that, I'm in favor. So, any other discussion that works for everybody? Or I guess we'll find out what we call that. So I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 5.2, we have memo from Councillor Parslow regarding asset management.
So the motion...
You just push your button, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Parslow?
The motion is that council direct staff to research approaches for council consideration to confirm that the additional 1% tax increase and subsequent allocation to capital be implemented on an annual basis.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Earl?
If I can speak to that.
Go ahead.
As I've shared, I think before, that councils, boards have no memory. And what I'm looking for here is that whilst we can't bind any future councils to any decisions, that if we have a process, either a policy or a bylaw, which can be changed and amended. They have to go through a process, and then that would require probably some presentation from staff as to why this was implemented. This addressing the well-being of our community in the long term is absolutely important to me, and I'm sure to many people who want to see the sustainability of this community. And this 1% capital asset management plan contribution will accumulate because it would be invested and kept separate. And we would be in 2040, remember, 2040-ish, in a good position for managing our capital assets. So it can't be fettering of future councils, but it will make them go through a process of adjustment. I've experienced so many local elected governments do things and don't know why they're doing them.
Yeah.
And they need to be made to go through the history.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Earl?
No, Charlie spoke to my concern.
Okay. Any other discussion? No. All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Any other new councillor business? Councillor Parslow?
The Homeless Committee met with Northern Lights College Friday around the trauma-informed education. It was a great meeting. The staff at the college expressed their desire that they need to do it not only for themselves, for their own, but they recognize the need. And so it was a totally positive meeting. And so liaisons have been established, and there possibly will be adjustments to curriculum for the teacher, social worker, and nursing programs, and also continuing education opportunities for concerned citizens and frontline workers to not only become aware of trauma-informed, but also possibly the importance of skills of doing it. It's one thing to take a course, but it's another thing to actually internalize it. So very, very positive meeting. They obviously know all about it. And so that's all I want to say about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other new councillor business? No? All right. Next order of business, 6, adoption of minutes. 6.1, minutes of public hearing, December 16th, 2024 for adoption. Councillor Kaempf, second Councillor Sudnick. Call that to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 6.2, minutes of the regular meeting of council from December 16th, 2024 for adoption. Councillor Apollonio, second. Councillor Kaempf. Call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Any business arising? No? All right. Next, 8, correspondence. 8.1 with the 2025-26 membership invoice from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the payment of this invoice.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. So I have a second. Councillor Kaempf, any discussion? I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 8.2, we have a letter from JuliAnne Sellmeyer, President, Mile Zero Figure Skating Club, received on December 18th, 2024, regarding a request for sponsorship to host the Totem figure skating competition. Councillor Parslow.
I move that we provide financial assistance of $3,000 to support this event.
I have a second. Councillor Kaempf, discussion.
Well, I thought the letter was very well done, and it obviously aligns with our strat plans and event tourism, and often to help these things occur, they do need some sponsorships and supports, and I think we should be given its possible economic impact as well as for the enjoyment of our local figure skaters, support it.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one or two things. I guess first would be through you to staff. Have we sponsored this event in the past?
So through Your Worship, we took a look. We couldn't see any record of a sponsorship in, I think, in the last 8 to 10 years. We couldn't find a resolution of council on that.
All right. I have no problem supporting this. One thing I would note, I guess we should probably call this a donation, not a sponsorship, since we're not purchasing marketing assets. It's just asking for a contribution, and that would be the distinction. So, if it were sponsorship, we'd be paying GST, and there'd be an invoice attached.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Any other discussion? I just had one comment on it. I'm completely in favor of supporting them, and this organization does a lot for the youth in our community, and it is, very aligned with our strategic priorities. My only concern is just the amount of the money being the first meeting of council, and we're seeing an uptake on grant requests coming into us. I know we didn't spend it all last year, but that's okay. But I feel like in the 2 years that we've been sitting here, we're getting more each year. So to give 25% of our grant funding in the very first meeting, I'm a little hesitant on. Personally, I think I would, not that I'm not in favor of the event, but I could get along more supporting $1,500, just being the nature that it's our first meeting of the year. And we have another request coming very shortly after this one as well. So, yeah. It's just, I wanted to open that up for discussion, but I'm, completely in favor of the event and what they do. And I know it's every second year they host this in our community, and I'm in favor of the youth and the organization and all they do. It's just the dollar value. Councillor Parslow.
Well, you're not the first to have concerns about this matter and the rest of the year, right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was, and I looked into staff here, in the past, haven't we sort of reserved certain amounts on a quarterly basis that we would have, so we'd have money left over for some events that might occur, let's say December or September, so it doesn't get front-loaded entirely and spent?
So through Your Worship, I think our policy speaks to having those quarterly kind of intakes, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, these groups come in as things arrive or as their events arrive, and so sometimes those timelines don't necessarily work for them. But some of this is also, as you indicated, is an economic development type of exercise. So, maybe there needs to be a greater discussion about whether that comes from the grants or maybe there's a different source. Because the reality is that, the grant budget is only $12,500, and so it doesn't take long when you have these size of requests before it does disappear. So something to think about as we go through the budget process.
So on an event like this, could we approve $1,500 out of the grant fund and
Certainly, council could decide to,
Then,
and if you took the
Can
rest
opt
out
it
of the.
through the
yeah,
Economic
if that was-
Development Fund separately. Okay. I'd be willing to do that through the Economic Development if we want to make a motion to amend this amount, but Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. On a side note, when was the last time the grant budget was actually increased? I'm thinking about the cost of doing business for all these different clubs, and that has gone up a lot in the last few years. Have we revisited that in the last 10 years?
Yeah, so through your worship, our grant budget used to be significantly larger. Years ago, significantly, and
dropped it.
It was reduced down to what you see, and Councillor Earl's probably correct. It's, yeah. So it's been a number of years since it's been changed.
Food for thought for in the future, maybe. I like the idea from the mayor about 1,500 from our grant, 1,500 from the economic development. This is a massive competition in our region, in the north. You're talking 300 plus competitors, plus 25 officials, plus families. This it's got some huge economic impact for our community. I believe we should support it to the full 3,000. And if I can offer the friendly amendment that the mayor proposed of doing the 1,500 and 1,500, I would be willing to do that.
Is it fine to be friendly? Everybody's fine with that? Okay. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. All right. 9:30 yet. Any other discussion? Okay. I will call this motion to vote. Oh,
Yeah.
Councillor Parslow?
No, let's vote on it. I just want to make a couple of comments. Let's vote on it first. It's not against it.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All right, I'll call this vote. Vote is closed. It's carried.
So just if I can,
Was it related to another motion or?
no, it's to this.
Okay.
You know, I think we need to talk about this because we want to promote event tourism, okay? And we see it as an economic development tool. So I'm just wondering if that could be encapsulated so that we don't go through this, because the BC Wildlife Federation, AGM, is being held in Dawson Creek this April. Delegates from all over the province coming, right? So that's another big thing, right? Economic development. And should there be a bit of a fund set up under, because you manage the economic development, under your careful management?
It's really careful because I don't use it.
No, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
This
no.
is going to be, having the BC Wildlife Federation here again, it's been about 15 years or so since it's been here. I bet you the Dawson Creek Sportsman's Club will be coming if they get organized, ask for some support, right?
Yeah.
So should we have a little catchment for event tourism under economic development in the budget? That's the question.
Okay. We can definitely have that conversation at budget, and I think, most economic development requests do come into the office, so we deal with some when they come too, so, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next order of business, 9 reports. We had 9.1 memo from corporate officer and the Urban Seniors Program grant funding request. I guess I did see all the different recommendations in here, Kevin, just over to you, but I didn't see one. Say if council did feel like this was something that we wanted to do annually, could this be referred to draft 2 budget and put in as a line item moving forward versus this coming out of the grant? This would use our whole grant fund up, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, through your worship, I think that's definitely something that I would think if it's going to be an annual thing, for sure you'd want to have it as a line item within the budget. And we have those sorts of things, whether it's the exhibition on a much larger scale or those types of things where it's annual, it's within the budget. They used to do it years ago for the downtown car cruise for a few years until it kind of got up and going. They had an annual budget that they gave to them. So it's happened in the past.
Okay. And there was no, when Anne gave us the presentation from the Society for Community Living, there was no deadline on when she wanted to do this. So if we were to choose to bring it to draft 2 budget and make that decision then, like that would meet their deadlines and requirements, or was there?
Yeah, through your worship, I mean, I think they're happy to get the funding if at all possible. I think if it takes a little bit longer, I don't know that that's an issue.
Okay, thank you. Just something I was thinking when I read through this. I'm not sure if council's okay with that, but I will leave it open for somebody to make a recommendation. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I will make a motion that we bring this back for our draft 2 budget to be voted on as a ongoing line item in our budget to support, Dawson Creek Society for Community Living and the request for the seniors program.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion? Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll support the motion as I'm not opposed to having the conversation, but this isn't, a donation or a grant as we'd normally discuss. It is its own thing, and it is essentially us entering into subsidizing a new service, which is, I guess I call it a social service of some sort. And I would, as part of that discussion, like to have a better handle on, number one, what resources already exist or what resources other levels of government are responsible for providing, and to help understand what our role in this could and should be. I was very impressed by the presentation we got, and I appreciate the work they do, but as we always have to be mindful, we have to let other levels of government do their work and focus on our work. And when we start trying to be everything to everyone, we sometimes leave ourselves in a position where we can't fulfill our core responsibility. So before we get into what I would call a new service center or providing, in part a new service, I'd like to have a better understanding of what we're committing to and what are we doing it because it needs to be done and we're the only ones who can do it, or are we doing it because other levels of government haven't been doing it sufficiently and now it's falling on us, as so many other things we've ended up having to take on over the last few years. So I'm happy to support this and have the conversation, but I'd like that to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Councillor Parslow?
Well, yes, well said. I had the same thoughts as well. I mean, we've had homeless, the well-being and of all our citizens is important, and I look forward to the conversation as well. Just as a reminder, the regional district Area D and E directors initially funded this program for rural residents for 2 years. It was hugely successful, but then it went to referendum. And it passed, the referendum passed 90-something odd %. But then what that means in the rural area, that the industrial tax base is paying about 90% of it, because that's the ratio, right? Rural. So it makes very little difference to my tax rates, but it's a very well appreciated program. We don't have that tax base. And I do know that if you dig into the mandate of Northern Health, I believe, I'm confident that it fits within their mandate, the support of homebound, vulnerable, challenged seniors. And so as part of the research, we should look into that as well. Because obviously, how can you, if you've got people in need, how can you say no? But we need to explore to what avenue is Northern Health's mandate being fulfilled here, if it is. And one person to access in preparing for this meeting would be Sam Barber. He knows more about this than I do. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's a needed program. But as Councillor Earl put it so well, where do you draw the line, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think to speak to a little bit too, I know Northern Health donates a similar amount than this proposal to the organization as well for this.
Yeah.
And then I also know through the regional district that they've advocated hard for this program to the province to look after covering it as well. Because I think that, when it did go to referendum, the budget for it is close to $3 million for rural residents. Like, it's a pretty substantial line item, and it provides a substantial service which helps healthcare. So I know that on that hat as the regional district, like, there's lots of advocacy to the provincial levels that this should be a line item on their line, not ours. So
yeah. Well, Tumbler Ridge and Pooskoopi are embracing this program.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
and I think
being
more-
funded from their tax base, but again,
I think the North Piece is actually looking at it now as well, and I think other parts of BC are. So the province recognizes it and the importance of it. But yeah, just getting them to contribute.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I support.
Thank you.
So I support the
Okay.
recommendation. It's,
Okay. Any other discussion on the recommendation? All right, I'll call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 9.2, we have report number 25-004 from the city planner regarding interim housing needs report update. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I'll move that report number 25-004 from the city planner regarding interim housing needs report update be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I have a second. Councillor Apollonio. Any discussion on, supposed to be on receiving for information, but if there's any discussion on this one, we can have a few comments. Councillor Parslow.
yeah, well, I appreciate the breakout. I hadn't seen that before. It's something, again, that perhaps in strat planning we need to talk about it, because there's an immediate need for improved housing for a lot of people in this community. And we need to start the journey and the conversation. I believe that staff is having a conversation at the end of January with Housing BC about some housing configurations. But I know that if we're going to embrace the taking care of some of our vulnerable people, housing is a core pillar for their safety and security. And the research shows that you have to have that in place if we hope to improve their mental and emotional and physical well-being. It's a core foundation in the growth. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Earl.
I guess one kind of comment question or a couple. First being the projected growth for housing needed in the rural areas. I'm surprised to see that based on recent statistics. The population in rural areas, specifically D, has decreased over the previous 5 years, and I'm not sure. I appreciate the optimism, certainly, and I hope, for that success, but I it'd be nice to talk to the folks putting this together to see where they're getting those figures from. And then secondly, and if I missed it, I apologize. It's a beefy document, and I didn't pour over every word like I do Devon's reports. But the role of infill or redevelopment of existing housing stock, I think that's something that has been, happened at a reasonable rate here in Dawson Creek in recent years. And I'm wondering how that's being captured and reflected in changing that picture, if that's something we're doing. Because one thing to say we need 500 new homes, is another thing if, a dozen houses a year are being renovated and refurbished and their usage changing, and how that changes the picture. And I think as we look to, what's our community going to look like in 20 years with respect to housing needs and things of that nature, whether we're talking about transit, whether we're talking about roads, sewer, all that we need to take into consideration, whether those new accommodations are built outwards or built upwards. And from a cost containment perspective, it makes a lot more sense to build within the city we have, as opposed to pushing our boundaries outwards. So, yeah, would be interested to hear about that as well.
Thanks, Councillor L. Any other discussion? No? All right, I'll call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have report 9.3, report number 25-007 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the Fire Training Center update. Councillor Parslow.
Move the report number 25-007 from the CAO, the Fire Training Centre update, which provides an update of the Peace River Regional District's decision to decline the proposal to own and operate the City of Dawson Creek Fire Training Centre, be received for discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Kaempf. I will call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Earl.
I'll let Councillor Parslow lead off, since it was his motion to receive for discussion.
Councillor Parslow.
Thank you, Jeremy. So I don't disagree with the recommendation of staff, but I do think I wanted to say a few words about it and ask a few questions. And I apologize to staff for not pre-warning you I was going to ask some questions about this, because it did not occur to me when I was going through the agenda that I would, but my emotions start getting stirred up. So really, do you have any idea, staff, about what cost savings have accrued to the city? Do we actually save money by having this rather than send in people off? And do you know how much we might save on that, just in a ballpark figure?
So through your worship, unfortunately, no, I don't know. I can't quantify the number. I'm pretty confident we are saving for a couple of reasons. Is obviously you've got your travel expenses, your live out expenses if you send somebody to the south for the training, and then while they're gone, you've usually got somebody backfilling those shifts on overtime. So there's those things. So this facility enables us to do a number of those recertifications and ongoing trainings and stuff without having to send those folks out. And that's why you see a lot of departments have these types of facilities primarily for their own use. It reduces costs and makes things a lot more flexible for them. The hope was, obviously, is that we were one of the first maybe the first in the region, was to take that and see if we could do more with it and generate revenue with it. The challenge is that we don't have a dedicated training officer, which is what you'd almost need, because what we have right now is the captains or whatever will have to lead the training. Well, if they have to come in, they can't be on shift leading training, so now you're bringing people on their days off, so that's an added cost. If you had a dedicated, and I'm not proposing this, I'm just saying, if you had a dedicated training officer, then that would be their function, to train our staff plus others. That would be their sole role, and that would provide you some flexibility to do it. So, but I can certainly, I can get some numbers for council to just give some indication of what the costs were and what they are now and what the savings have been.
Well, if I can...
Melissa go ahead first, please. Councillor Parslow. I'm just going to let Melissa speak to it.
Sorry?
I'm just going to let Melissa speak to it.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. Through your worship to Councillor Parslow, so I can confirm the budget for the training centre for 2025, draft one, is just over $6,000. The bulk of that, well, over half of it is towards insurance. So obviously there's a capital component that would have been initially incurred, but the budget ongoing for that facility, not necessarily incorporating the additional wages, is $6,000.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Go ahead, Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, in recent years, there's also been some repair necessary at that building. I know we had a long discussion about this when it was first established, and we were told that the volunteer firefighters of the various would use this training facility. Charlie Late was committed to it, Moberly, Tate Creek, so on. And then, in response to all this, the city of Fort St. John built their own, which was a bit of a shock. But I don't think those rural, because of what you've said about availability of staff, I don't think there's great use of the place by the rural fire departments now. But I could be dead wrong. Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, so through your worship, they did initially, there was some use, but no, recent years, there hasn't been.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Councillor Parslow for the history. I was trying to search my mind to remember how we, I think it was your predecessor, Blair Leckstrom, who first struck upon the idea of maybe kicking the tires to see if the RD would be interested in taking over this asset. I guess one thing with respect to the training and use of the facility, and I'm not sure, maybe it'll transgress into what would be done by union staff, so it's a non-starter. But would that be something, if there was a retired firefighter in town or somebody who had the ability to do the training, we could put out a request for proposal or something that, they could provide the service for a fee and just, kick us something back? Because when it was first, it is kind of outside the bounds of what normally the fire department, it's not putting out a fire. It's a training service. Is that at all? And I'm just thinking if, part of the reason the business case isn't what it could have been is because we just don't have the manpower or and we're not in a position to be entrepreneurial about going out and booking it for training. If we had somebody in there who, they're not necessarily a full-time staff, but they've got a financial incentive to book it so they can offer a service, is that at all? I mean, we're kind of getting away from what the actual motion is, and I apologize for that, but I'm just trying to think how we can, I'm glad that we can save some costs for our department and spare those guys the travel, but the initial goal of this was that there was going to be kind of an entrepreneurial component where we sold the service to other fire departments.
So through your worship, certainly something we can explore. If I remember correctly, obviously, it's the, and I think you're right, it's the lack of certified instructors in the area. So then it resorts to our existing staff. If there was some certified instructors in the area, is that a possibility? Well, yeah, maybe that is. And so it's something that I can certainly talk to the chief and get a sense of that. And I think maybe also I can get the chief to, in our next department update, to provide some, tell a little bit more of a story of how that's going and what that looks like from and the use from a training perspective and those opportunities. So yeah, I'll get some more information.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Thanks, Kevin. All right, any other discussion? No. All right. Next order of business, 10 bylaws. 10.1, we have report number 25-010 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding 2025 revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 4596, 2024 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Parslow.
Move the report number 25-010 from the CFO. The 2025 revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 4596, 2024 be received. Further, that the 2025 revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 4596, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion? No? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 10.2, 10.2, report number 25-003 from the city planner regarding zoning amendment 24-02 bylaw number 4589, 2024 for consideration of third reading and adoption. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation that report number 25-003 from the city planner regarding zoning amendment 24-02 bylaw number 4589 2024 be received. Further, that zoning amendment 24-02 bylaw number 4589 2024 be given third reading and adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Have a second? Councillor Apollonio, discussion? I'll call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 10.3, report number 25-005 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding fees and charges amendment bylaw number 4597, 2025 for consideration of first three readings. Councillor Apollonio.
Thank you, Your Worship. That report number 25-005 from the Deputy Corporate Officer, fees and charges amendment bylaw that number 4597 2025 be received. Further, that fees and charges amendment bylaw number 4597 2025 be given first three readings.
Thank you, Councillor Apollonio. Do I have a second? Councillor Kaempf, any discussion? Oh, Councillor Parslow.
I don't go on Facebook. I don't use social media very, very rarely. However, when people talk to me directly, I listen to them. There have been a number of discussions I've had about this increase, and I've been happy to defend it. And I've been defending it quite forcefully, and I have a list of items that I purchased 2 years ago, a year ago, and their current prices. And the general public has to realize that the city is not immune from inflation and cost of living factors. We are just as exposed as anybody else. And I'm paying now for some items with 20% more than I was paying just last year. So the cost of doing business is unfortunately not evenly, the burden of increased costs of expenditure is not evenly spread it's usually the poor and the with lower income people who take the brunt of all this. But if the public want these services, we have to meet the costs somehow. And you take the DOD issues, the cost of DODs, and then our cost for the SPCA services. So I've been willingly defending this, but I just want you guys to know I've had lots of comments about this, by lots, 7 or 8, which is a lot for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Earl?
Yeah, I mean, I echo Councillor Parslow's sentiment. I appreciate at a time of increasing costs that nobody likes to see fees increase, but I think it is important that we point out that whether or not we choose to increase fees, the cost to provide a service is going up every year, be it labor, be it insurance, be it maintenance, be it parts, be it, the inputs go up. Whether or not we charge that back to the public in the form of fees or whether that shows up and is funded out of general revenues is the distinction. And people who would like us to hold the rate of fees are basically suggesting either we increase taxes a corresponding amount or we just get back into the situation we got into where taxes don't go up, in which case less general revenue is making its way to capital and infrastructure. So I appreciate it's frustrating, but it really is one of those things where the cost is the cost, and if we want to have a serious conversation about reducing costs, that really means getting rid of cost centers and having lower service standards. It's not a matter of, if we just don't charge it, those costs don't inflate or increase. It's not that's wishful thinking, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Other discussion? Thank you, everyone. I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, we'll just take a 10-minute break and come back in. 2025 back to order. I noticed that I missed something on, I'm just going to go back in the agenda to report number 9.1. There was potentially 2 recommendations there, so, or 2 separate ones. So I'm just going to go back to 9.1. Somebody can make a recommendation. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move that Council direct staff to amend the city grants policy to improve the efficiency of the application and approval process, including achievable, defined guidelines and criteria. Further, that the amended policy be presented to Council for consideration at a future meeting.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a second? Councillor Sednick? Yeah, I just realized that I missed this one, and I know we had some discussion earlier about it when we were talking about the figure skating. Councillor Parslow, you brought up about revisiting just the grant procedures. So, and then I didn't realize there was 2 in here. So I to bring it back and see if Council is in favor of having the city team take a look at the grant policies. So, any discussion? Councillor Earl?
Just trying to figure out what this looks like. I mean, I don't think the existing grant, how we discuss grants, is particularly inefficient. I mean, the whole point of the $12,500 fund is it's a discretionary initiative that we kind of approve or don't approve on a case-by-case basis as long as it's within budget and we see value in it or we have the capacity to help with it. It's kind of inefficient in some sense, but the whole point of that discretionary fund is it's on a per item base. We consider it per item. I'm just wondering what we mean when we're asking when we're trying to improve the efficiency of it. What does that look like, or what do we envision?
So through your worship, I think you're right, and what council's doing is fine. What we're saying is it doesn't actually follow the policy. The policy that we have is pretty robust and probably a lot more cumbersome than the process you're currently undertaking. And I think what we need to do is probably match the two, is the sense I have. I also think that the policy we have is probably more suited for, it's not really suited for council giving $500 of support to somebody. It's probably meant to something, a much larger sum of money where there's more rigor. So I think with the amount that you've got to work with, which is $12,500, and typically broken up in many, many pieces, I don't think the same rigor needs to apply. So I think what you're doing now probably does work. We just need to make sure the policy reflects that, is kind of where we're, and maybe if there is any things to be tweaked, but yeah.
Thank you. Any discussion? Well, all right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, next order of business is 11, Mayor's Business, 11.1, Mayor's Updates. Community conversations. Like always, I had a lot of community conversations over the last little bit. I won't get into too many right now. There was, just lots of the stuff that we see and deal with. So there was nothing really that stuck out big in there. Second, Northern Lights attended the Northern Lights College and the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association barn build groundbreaking ceremony at the Exhibition Association. So it was amazing. It was a huge partnership for our city. Northern Lights College and the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association have, and the city of Dawson Creek have partnered with the carpentry program at the college to build and add on to a facility at the grounds. So we had a celebration or ceremony there. A few councillors were there. And the students were there actually as well from the carpentry program to announce. So just an exciting thing, and exciting to see multiple organizations in our community come together to benefit our community as a whole. So it's a real win-win-win for everybody, and something that those students get to be part of as well. There was must have been 15 plus students there, probably closer to 20. So it was amazing to see that they get to be part of that. They get to build something that they get to look back over the years and remember that they were part of that. So it's very exciting, and the college has done a great deal of this throughout the last 10 or 15 years in building homes in the community. So this is a new avenue for them, doing something a little bit different than a home. But just an amazing for all. And it really is just a true win. So Treaty 8 Tribal Association presentation. So something, really when we first got into council, we were talking about banners and stuff in the city. It's been a long process. Melissa and myself went up to Fort St. John and met with the Treaty 8 Tribal Association, gave a bit of a presentation, and had some great dialogue back and forth with them. They've got a new exciting logo that they've recently just came out with. So we had some really good dialogue with them just on the whole banner project. And as it gets going a little bit further, Melissa and myself are going to go back there and present again. So there's just been some dialogue and kind of really opened up the doors between both. So it was good. Podcast interview. I had a podcast interview with Macwood Productions a few weeks ago. It was really fun, actually. They, I believe, was it TELUS, Melissa? Is that they got some funding for these podcasts through TELUS, so they're doing a bunch of them. I think I was the last one that they did, but it was really fun. They set it up inside council chambers in a very relaxed atmosphere, how they had it set up, and it was really fun. It was an hour of just talking about a lot of the things, from growing up in Dawson, being born and raised, to where I am today, and everything in between. So it was amazing, and they did a wonderful job. And I think they're half of them. I think they did 8, and half of them are being released in January. The other half in February, I believe it was. So, exciting, and they've interviewed a lot of great people.
community members from the community. So it was fun, and I just wanted to give them a shout out. They did an amazing job with it, and I was really grateful to be part of it and to see them grow and their company grow. So MP Bob Zimmer had an open house right before Christmas time. A few attended that as well. I did have a meeting with him afterwards just to talk about just our water security and just potential federal grants and stuff, and a lot of other things. But he's definitely in full support. He's already given us a letter of support, but he's definitely he's definitely in support of the community and where our vision is with it and with a lot of things. So it was good. Rotary Manor door decorating event. That was fun. We a couple events in Rotary Manor. One was the reindeer shooting, which was pretty exciting, and then we went back up there. There was a few of us that went back up for the door judging, and the residents of Rotary Manor and the team at Rotary Manor has decorated their doors for Christmas. So we went around on all 3 floors and pretty much every part of it, and I got to check out all the doors and conversate with some of the staff and the team there and the residents. So another amazing event, and actually it's really just inspiring to see how much effort their staff and team put into making their residents feel at home and very welcome there. So we're pretty grateful and fortunate to have that facility and that team in Dawson Creek. It is amazing. Councillor Parslow touched a little bit on the homelessness committee this morning. We did have a meeting last week with the homelessness and community action team meeting. Just a brief update. It's going to be coming back to council. We kind of went through the report that Devin did up and Bill with them. Kind of answered any questions. Kevin and myself were there. And Councillor Parslow was there as well. And there's, I think out of that, there might be a couple more clear asks that might be coming, and we can expect to see something back at council in the future. Juniper fundraising committee meeting. I've had a few committee meetings on that. And Juniper, for those that don't know, I know I've talked about it in here before, but Juniper is the nonprofit charitable organization that's going to be running the PCN, or the formerly Elgin Medical Clinic. So they're the organization. I don't have a big update from them right now besides they're just in the process of applying for charitable status and just got the board identified and coming up with all the governance and stuff right now. So this will be a busy year for the group, and we'll start seeing a lot more of it in the community and some community events to bring the community together and really showcase what the facility is and the benefit. At a seniors roundtable last week, I just wanted to touch briefly on that. I wanted to give a shout out to Melissa, our CFO, for attending. She gave a bit of a presentation on our budget process and where we are and what we've went through, and Kevin and myself, and we've had a lot of discussion over the last while about how we get out to the community more about our budget process and make people more involved in it. So this was kind of like a testing ground on how it worked, and it was very successful. It was Melissa did an unbelievable job, like would not surprise anybody, on the presentation, and really just the open dialogue we had there. And then we might see where that goes and deal with another roundtable this month potentially as well, and just more get out to the community. So it was really great. So Bear Mountain Nordic Ski Club. I've lived here my whole life and always heard of the Nordic Ski Club and know where it's been, and I've walked the trails up there in the summer, and I've always kind of wanted to go out there. So Pat invited me up to go take a tour, and him and his wife Robin spent the whole morning with me on Saturday touring me around. And for those that haven't been up there, it is absolutely phenomenal the amount of work that organization and group has done to really to have that facility. But it just blew me away how
yeah, I knew it was great, but it really like took it to the next level once I got to see all the work they've done, and from the trails to the buildings to the youth that use it out there. Yeah, it is just amazing. Yeah, the new groomer that I know the regional district was a huge part on helping with that, but seeing all the skis and everything they do, and yeah, we're pretty lucky to have a facility like that that close to our community. And so I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Pat and Robin and the whole organization and all the volunteers out there. And it's just, I can't remember their youth number, but that one always gets me when I'm doing these, and I see like how much they've done, but then how much youth use it, because that's really what it's about. So, and it was, I want to say 100 youth that they have come up there quite often and use it, and there's some instructors that help with that quite a bit. So, yeah, just amazing. Next, letter of support. I just put this on here just really for council and the public, just to just for information, really. We had a meeting interprovincial with the 4 counties on the Alberta side, and there was just some discussion about their going to their provincial government about pushing forward the twinning of the highway from Alberta, from the BC-Alberta border right into where it's already twinned by Grand Prairie. Their big reason for it is just safety. They had an accident on their side in the last year where there was a fatality, and for them, that's all they need to continue to push forward through it. So just wrote a letter of support that we're in favor of that. I am going to add to the CC on this, just to our provincial ministry as well in BC. I did have some conversation with Bob Zimmer as well when I met with him in regards to this as well, because him and the MLA at that time, which was Blair Lekstrom, they've also went down this road about the twinning even into BC. So all of that has been done. So the work hasn't been done, obviously, because we know that, but just a lot of the behind the scenes work, and they have that all provincially already. So maybe this will help bring some awareness back to it. And yeah, and I didn't have all the numbers obviously on accidents and stuff, but I know on our side that we deal with, there's a lot of emergency response on that stretch of the highway. So yeah, any questions on any of that? There's updates. No. All right. Next, I got 11.2 memo from myself. I'm just, under the authority of the community charter, I'm placing the following motion back on the floor for council's discussion and consideration. That council approve the remaining funds from the Growing Communities Fund towards trail development projects that include but are not limited to Kin Park lighting and Rotary Trail MUP on 17th Street bypass. So, yeah, I'm just bringing it back on the floor. So it's currently back on the floor like it hasn't been, and it's open for discussion. So, Councillor Parslow.
Yes, I would like to make a procedural motion. I would like to move that we retire into in-camera and review the information presented in our upcoming in-camera agenda under item 4.2, not make any decisions in camera about that matter, but just so that we can have a thorough briefing and understanding of the content of item 4.2 before we consider, then go back to our open meeting to consider this matter. So I so move that procedural motion.
I don't know if we need to. I think we can discuss what's enclosed, maybe not the details of it, but they're two. I mean, the reason for both is not, one came after the other. They're not, they're not using same funds, none of that. So I don't know if we need to go back into close. I think I'm fine with dealing this now. We can speak to what's enclosed without being item specific to it, but I'm not in favor of it. I think we're in the agenda right now. I don't see that it altering any decisions. This is just being brought back on the floor, so.
Well, I've made a motion. It needs a seconder before it can be considered.
Somebody like to second it? Councillor Sudnick? Discussion? I was going to say, I'm not going to vote in favor of this. I believe that, I feel that Kevin can give an update generally on what we're talking about enclosed. You can refer to things from that while we're talking in open, just not the details of it. There's things that we talk about all the time in open that we got to be a little careful about. So I'm not going to vote in favor of it. I think we can deal with this right now. Any other discussion? No? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Oh, sorry, did you have something, Councillor Earl?
So the vote before us is whether we're going into closed, not whether. Are we confident that the conversation that Councillor Parslow is looking to have is going to be that we're going to be able to discuss that within the parameters what open allows for and not. I'm ambivalent. If I'm not opposed to having a more thorough conversation. I just, if we're going to revisit this issue, I want to make sure we conclude the issue and not have cause to have to revisit it at a later date.
Through your worship, there is a motion on the floor previous, to Councillor Parslow's motion, a reconsideration motion. So in order to take care of Councillor Parslow's motion, we would need to make a motion to defer the current resolution on the floor until after the closed meeting, and then move into the closed meeting under a separate resolution. But right now you do have a motion on the floor, the reconsideration motion.
So so that's the motion we got on the floor currently.
That
So
is
in order
correct.
for
You would have to
Councillor-
deal with that prior to dealing with an additional motion to go into closed first, because it is on the floor.
Okay. So somebody would need to defer the current motion. So the current motion that we have on the floor is the motion from draft one budget, that council approve the remaining funds from the Growing Communities Fund towards trail development projects that include but are not limited to Kin Park lighting and Rotary Trail MUP's 17th Street bypass. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to make a motion to defer the motion from Mayor Dober from 11.2 of our open meeting for us to go into consideration of Councillor Parslow's motion to go into closed.
Motion to defer. So I have a second. Councillor Sudnick. All right, I will call this motion to defer. Okay. Those in favor?
Oh, what did we just vote on? The defer.
Opposed? It's carried. I'm opposed. So now there'll be another motion on the floor that Councillor Parslow would like to move into closed, seconded by Councillor Sudnick.
Through your worship, the motion would include the purposes of moving into the closed for agenda item 4.2 as highlighted on the screen.
All right, I'll make the resolution to move into the meeting of council closed to the public for agenda item 4.2, section 191E, the acquisition, disposition, or expiration of land or improvements, if the council consider that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. Have a motion? I guess Councillor Parslow, yeah. Okay. Do you need me to vote by hand, or? I'll call the vote. Vote is carried. It's closed. We'll take 5 and go into closed. 13th back to order. So we just deferred 11-2, so I'm going to put back on the floor that council approve the remaining funds from the Growing Communities Fund toward trail development projects that include but are not limited to Kin Park lighting and Rotary Trail MUP 17th Street bypass. Discussion. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. So I'm still not in favor of us supporting the splash park. I would like a splash park as much as anyone in this community. I think it'd be a great addition to Kin Park, but in due time. I recognize that this is at the top of the want list for some residents in this community, but it is a want. It is not a need at this time. We need to take care of our needs first. We've discussed capital management multiple times. We've already spent so much on all our existing wonderful infrastructure here in our community. Our strategic plan was to make better use of our existing infrastructure, not frivolously add to it, and further strain an already very strained operating budget. The cost to operate this is going to be difficult. We are already increasing our tax rate. The part about increasing the taxes we don't discuss is the fact that that's an increase on our business community as well. Our business community tells us regularly that they're facing some of the steepest taxes in the region, in the province. We're trying to support them. We're trying to support a downtown core. Increasing their taxes as well is going to be a hard thing to look our business community in the eye and say, hey, we've had to increase your taxes so that we can have a splash park. Make your cost of doing business that much more. I've heard people talk about, that a splash park will help us attract professionals to our communities. Well, I think more importantly, in the case of trying to attract professionals to our communities, is reliable, affordable daycare and community safety. It's been brought to our attention multiple times from multiple sources that daycare in this community is extremely hard to come by. And we should be doing everything we can to support that and help alleviate the pressure on families, and to ensure when a new professional, nurse, doctor, medical professional wants to come into this community and they do research, that they can find daycare for their children to help support their family as they give to this community. We've talked about the multi-court flooring. We inherited the multi-court flooring. It was purchased by a council before us. I think being able to use that in the Kin Arena to create more court time, community time for a multiple range of age groups and users on a 365-day-a-year basis instead of a 30 to 40-day-a-year basis is much more sensible in our spending of our capital money. I've got lots more to say on it. I've said it before, and I'll turn it over to others, but I'll finish with the water. We are in desperate times for water. We're looking at California burned to the ground right now. We looked at our province almost burned to the ground 2 years ago. We had to use our water reserves in the middle of winter 2 winters ago. This is a frivolous use of our potable water. And I know it's a recycle, but it still uses water, and it makes it really hard, I believe, for our CAO to look ministers in the eye, or even our mayor to go and talk to federal ministers and say, our water is in a desperate, desperate situation that we need to fix. Please ignore the fact that we are just wasting potable water on a splash park. Even though it's a recycle system, it uses water. It'd be very hard. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, this reconsideration, I just have a couple of questions that are important to me. I'm not against reconsidering motions at all. Mistakes are made. New information is provided. So I have just two questions. When this motion was made, was there a mistake, a procedural mistake?
Yeah. Yes.
There was.
Yes.
What was that?
I don't need to say what it was, but on the vote, there was brought to my attention after by councillor, which I don't need to disclose.
No,
who it
that's
was,
fair enough.
Right? Out of respect to that. So I didn't bring it back because I didn't get my way, if that's what the thoughts were. And I know there was some dialogue that went along. I brought it back because that was brought to me instantly after the council meeting.
So supplementary then, I respect that. Right?
Yeah.
Supplementary to that, was there a reason why we weren't alerted to that? Because I tell you why, okay?
Yeah.
Many people, and by many I've qualified that before, about a dozen or so people, talk to me about the trails and the splash park. And so I've been speaking to them. That's why some people ask me questions I didn't know the answers to. That's why I met with Ryan. Had I known, I think I would have probably, maybe the rest of us had said nothing, about communicating this decision. So with all due respect to everyone, it would have been good to know that there was a voting issue. And I understand that. So the second part of my question was any new information to add to the debate? Is there some argument that wasn't made or some data that needs to be made?
No new business that I was aware of. The whole reason why I reconsidered it was because it was brought to my attention at that day, meeting. And I apologize for maybe not bringing it up, but that's why I put it on the agenda. And because I didn't necessarily have to put it on the agenda, I could have just brought it up today. But I put it forward as a recommendation that it was coming back, and it's within the community charter to do that. And
Sure it is, yeah.
yeah. So I could have said something, and I didn't. I didn't want to. It was for different reasons, out of respect for that conversation I had.
Because we can, looking at the corporate officer here, but we could have reconsidered it at that meeting if the mistake had been made.
Yeah, I was notified after the meeting was done.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I too, I'm not at all inclined towards the splash park for many of the reasons that Councillor MacDonald has stated. I just want to say a few things, which I don't know if I said them before, but if I have, I apologise. One of the things that I'm really, and I appreciate the work that has been done and will be done over this sub-recreation business with the regional district. But in my discussions with elected officials representing regional district, it's very hard when I say that our recreation, we're hard pressed to fund our recreation. We got a tough budget stuff. We need more support from you. And we then add to our inventory of recreation things in the community. I don't think that helps us with our regional directors, particularly one of them. It's It's like we're saying one thing but doing another. To me, we have a swimming pool that is the envy, I think, of every community in the BC side of the piece. That swimming pool has a splash park. It has 10 splash park components to it. We subsidize that swimming pool in the order of $1.5 million a year. And that Ken Borwick Aquatic Centre, my recollection from the total cost of the multiplex, $18 million of that multiplex cost was building that component of the multiplex. I'm not going to deny the fact that using the splash park on those, what we have 12 warm days a year, according to Climate Canada, going to the splash park on those 12 warm days, it would not be, I don't think, a cooling experience. I don't say that it would be. But we have a good splash park already, and it's an inside one. And I see this as a duplication, not the same nature, but it is something of a duplication. And I see it also as something that serves a important but small section of our community of users. Unless some of us seniors are going to play in the splash park, I don't see that happening. But and I see needs out there in the community that are much broader and inclusive of everyone, such as a dynamic trail system. I also have concerns on the safety with the location. And I know there was consultation, and fine, we consult, the city consults about lots of things, but it's just information. Some people who are in this position can see the city as a whole. And I really wonder, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I've noted that since we've had the, what do they call that, pickleball courts and so on, parking on that street road frontage, getting by it is somewhat congested. And if we put another facility there, and often involving many young children and young families, I'm sure, I just wonder about what we can do to mitigate safety. Expanding car parks, etc., because I do see it as a bit of a potential safety issue. But I'm not an expert in that, I'm just flagging that. So I still think for 12 days a year of warm weather and what we already have in a wonderful centre, that we need to develop our trail system. What trails we have, in a significant measure, are thanks to our wonderful Rotary clubs. When I go to communities, I often walk on trails. Grand Prairie, Peace River, Fort St. John, Chetwynd, Prince George, Quesnel. I can't talk about Williams Lake, I've never done it there. And to just go on, wonderful trail system. Kelowna's fantastic. We really are not up to the prevailing standard in the communities that I know of concerning our trails. So that's why I know that it's the important need expressed from 2012 on. And here's an opportunity of actually funding something that will serve everybody. So I will not vote for a splash park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Apollonio? Oh, you can push your button again. There you go. Councillor Apollonio.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want a question. Actually, I'm the one who approached Mayor Darcy then. Okay, I have some questions. When I asked my Mayor Darcy, I think the growing committee funds will expire on 2027. Is that right? Or
The Growing Communities Fund, I think, has to be used by 2027, yes.
okay,
Yeah, it needs to, yeah, through your worship, it needs to be spent by the end of '27.
so yeah, I heard all my colleagues about the pros and the cons. And for example, when 2027 arrive, when is the multiplex will be free of debt or free from expenses?
So the debt for the multiplex is coming off after 25 or 26?
27, 26.
Around 27 as well. Yeah.
Okay.
The debt repayment for the multiplex.
Is that the repayment will just kind of alleviate or augment some expenses in case the water splash will be built, or no?
Well, that'll be, and how much is that debt repayment? Okay.
I guess the funds from that debt servicing will go back into operating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not general revenue. Not specifically to the water, but yeah, it'll definitely help in other areas. Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
Through your worship to Councillor Apollonial, and I apologize, I don't have the breakdown, or at least in front of me, of each loan, but I can let you know that our debt servicing within the general fund for 2025 is 10.9 million, and in 2027 it drops to 7 and then down to 6 and continues to drop from there on out. So I think we may have a partial payment between 2027 and 2028, but you're looking at a reduction of debt servicing of $5 million from now to 2028.
So you're saying, for example, if 27 arrives, at least it will be built. Maybe in case this project will be built, it will be built on 2027. So in case somehow we're kind of financial free or not.
Well, if the splash, through your worship, if the splash park was built, I think what we're saying is that there's debt servicing coming off. And so that opens up opportunities for where that money goes, whether that goes into any number of demands that are placed upon us. But yes, so there'll be less committed to debt servicing.
Yeah. Yes. As I said, with regards to my my motion, I remember that, of course, last year we did survey in the community and mostly likes that. And the splash park, the idea, I know we have lots of things to consider like finances or, operating after that. But for me, I just want to honor the survey made from the community, because there's really a lot of, I know it's a want, but it's really coming from the families, the children, or especially the families, that they want this splash park to be built. And also, I came here 2009. I know we are in a rural community. I don't know how life is paced, like slow or fast or something. I'm not sure. But when I arrived 2009, I saw the community in a way, okay? But sorry to say, of course, the growth is not that infrastructure. I saw the structure, of course, the multiplex is there, but other thing like the family that I talked to, they're looking something maybe exciting, maybe something new. I'm not sure. So that's what I'm saying. That's why when I during the last council meeting, I realized, maybe it's time to go. Yes, for the families that wants it, maybe. I know it's really a burden again for the next many years. We're really doing a fantastic job from this council, because we put a new playground. We're trying to the misting park. So I'm saying, for example, if we did the misting park, can we operate the splash park on the misting park? So at least it's one area, for example, like congestion-wise, parking. And since we have the Rotary Lake there before, so because sometimes I think, my memory recall, the committee is kind of impatient because what happened after the Rotary Lake accident happened? What did the city did? or what happened. So that's why maybe this kind of clamor is emanating. So is that Rotary Lake could be used as a splash park maybe, or?
So, through your worship, I think through that process of engaging the community, we ask questions about location, accessibility, all those, and it. So could it go at Rotary Lake site? Yes, but what we heard from people was that they wanted more of a central location for accessibility because Rotary is it's a lot farther to go for folks. Where in the downtown, it's easier for folks to get to walking or cycling or whatnot. So yes, it could go out there, but it would be contrary to what the people had asked for. Secondly, we have to be cognizant of that Rotary Lake area is in the flood zone. And so you'd want to be cautious of any investments you make there that they are not in that area for fear that, we had a flood and things were damaged.
In my also in my motion, for example, I know we have a splash park inside the aquatic center, which I know that. Is there any way that aquatic center splash park could be built near Kenborek, at least it's outside? Because I know some people that I spoke to, they can afford going inside the swimming pool because of the fees. And maybe building this, maybe, I'm not sure. I know it's really be another financial burden for us, but if it's out there and near Kenborek Aquatic Center, which is also has source of water, I'm not sure how will be the construction or something.
Right. So through your worship, I don't know that there's a location near the Kenborek Aquatic Center that would just quickly looking at it in my head. I don't know if there's a site there that works well for it. The water wouldn't be connected to the aquatic center anyway, so that's I don't think changes anything. So what you're just for clarity, if I heard you correct, is the concerns about the cost to get into the aquatic center is sometimes a barrier. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah. Some families that I spoke to because of the $7 or $8. I know there's a discount for families, but sometimes that stop them from going there. So that's what I heard, and so those are the things that I consider during that time. And of course about the congestion, I know during the survey they want it in the center. Maybe it's part of the, I'm not sure, the downtown revitalization, like the strategic plan, because it's near downtown, or in case comes the new hospital is built, the old hospital would be like a new parking space maybe, or I don't know, another establishment there maybe, or other like a parking to ensure that there's enough parking space. And of course, the safety, I think the better people here could be determine the safety. So
yeah. So through your worship, as far as parking down there is, we recognize that with pickleball, there's more parking and traffic, which is good. That's what you want. But if that increases, we know that we're going to have to enhance some parking in that areas, probably in the existing playground area where you drive down off 110th and there's that circular area. That likely would have to be enhanced into some parking because that old playground needs to be removed anyways. Also, the parking over towards the old tennis courts and the ball fields there that is existing may need to be enhanced a little bit as well. So something we're looking at and cognizant of.
yeah, I think that's what I'm going to say. Yeah, I know I also been to Victoria and to Kelowna when I was new here. And of course, I saw the splash park. And somehow, I wish we could have that splash park indoors. Of course, I was not councillor during that time. Just only wishful thinking because I'm just new in Dawson Creek or new in Canada. And that's wonderful to the community. But it's up to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Apollonio. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll try and be brief. So I guess maybe a question to yourself as you're our representative on the RD, just touching on a point Councillor Parslow made about the sub-regional recreation and how that conversation is going with the details. I know in the public outreach that Kevin mentioned, if I recall correctly, about 20% of the respondents were not residents of Dawson Creek. Has there been a conversation with the RD about increasing their contribution to correspond with this, or their interest in having the amenity at all?
We've had a few discussions around sub-regional, and not specific to this venue. On the sub-regional or that requisition, there's 3 facilities named in the city of Dawson Creek, which were the same 3 facilities that were named in the 50s. So I think part of those next discussions are looking at all
what's
the
the intent
facilities
behind, yeah.
right? We have a lot more facilities in our community than we did in 1950.
Yeah, the letter of the agreement versus the spirit of the agreement.
Yeah, and the bylaws changed since then too, and the bylaw now words as a broader spectrum, where this, like other facilities that aren't on there, would be. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess a couple more things I'll mention. I'll wrap it up. With respect to paying for the park, as I've noted, and I'm trying to be consistent with and commit to, my support for the initiative is contingent upon it being paid for with the tax increase. If we're going to add a new cost center, we need to pay for it. The way we got into the trouble we got into in the aughts and the early whatever is adding services and facilities, and then not increasing taxes to pay for them. So I take the point of my colleagues who've mentioned the strain this puts on businesses, but I think that's what we have to do if we're going to do things, and that's a lesson for the community. And if it's too much to bear, people won't continue asking for stuff and insisting on new services. With respect to this, I think, I don't honestly, this is something I've gone back and forth on, simply because I don't have, I'm trying to exercise my best judgment in service to the public interest, and where I personally see value might not be where other people see value, right? I don't use ice rinks and soccer fields and baseball diamonds, but I understand there is value in that for people. I use the library and K-Pack and walking trails and the swimming pool, and I think they're great, and I understand there are people who don't use those and might not see value in them. So as we try and sit down and take a look from 5,000 feet in the air at the entire community and where that value lies, I can't be certain. I'll say what I do know is I've appreciated in recent years the momentum of the impacts of the incremental changes and improvements that we've made in this last couple of years especially, and all credit to Ryan and his staff. They've knocked a lot of items off the list and got that momentum going. So whether this goes towards a splash park or these funds go towards a trail network, I think, I can't honestly tell you which is going to have more value over the long term. But I do, either way, no matter how this decision goes, I appreciate the momentum that's started to build. And I think it's important we keep that going, as Councillor Apollonio said, for the sake of the public's engagement and passion. And I could go on, but those are my thoughts. Is either of these projects are worthy of consideration, and I know for we did go to the trouble of asking the community what they wanted, and they did tell us, and they did indicate they were willing to pay more for it. So with that in mind, I'll try to, I guess, honor that.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to go out of the order of the request list, so and only out of respect for other councillors to speak first. So I'm going to go to Councillor Sudnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some comments on this. I echo some of the concerns already noted from other councillors regarding this. Just a couple of thoughts come to mind when, it is thought or perceived that just because we've asked for some information on a project doesn't mean that it's an automatic yes, we're doing it. Doing a survey for information is one thing, but with the expectation that just because we asked means that it's a go-to project. In here, there's also the note, of an additional tax increase be incorporated into future budgets. Is that a 1%? Is that a 10%? What does that look like actually? It's already been noted here today that there are some families that cannot afford the $7 or $8 to go to the swimming pool a couple of times. So to give them the already increase in taxes that we're doing this year with speculative tax increase of an undetermined amount right now would be a crazy surprise when it comes, because it will. Some of the comments about, having a splash park and more amenities to attract professionals. I don't think, and I have never heard that any of the reasons we don't attract professionals of any category is because they can't drop their kids off at a water park in February because they need to go to work. When you look at value for me, usability, there's a very short window in perfect conditions to use an outdoor splash park. Some of the other amenities we have in our town are year-round use. So for opportunity, I would love to have a splash park, and it's a great idea. But every time something new and shiny comes up, there has to be some thought to it. It's just, as much as it would be fun to have a splash park, I agree, but it just doesn't make sense financially. Time use, tax increases, there's so many limiting factors for it for me. Just a couple of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sudnick. Melissa, did you want to?
Through your worship to Councillor Sudnick, just for clarity, so in the budget recommendations or the draft one budget report, it did state that the operational costs are projected to be $120,000, and that was considered to be a 0.6% of a tax increase. And then within the Splash Park report, I believe that came in August, report number 24-101, the operational costs were for option design 3 were $11.13 per household per year. And 81% of the respondents said they were comfortable with the operational costs.
Thank you, Melissa. Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, I'm not going to belabor the point, but just that operating cost is challenged by people who've run splash parks, but that's up to you guys to do your homework on that regard. As long as you build in the regular maintenance stuff that's required of the different units and their placement. One word of caution, and I'm sure you've taken care of this, but I need to ask this question. Northern Health, I have no idea what their requirements are for the operating a splash park. Have you a knowledge of that? Because the worst thing of all scenarios is for us to build a splash park and then for some reason it doesn't meet Northern Health requirements from the point of view of the cleaning of water. I know with the Rotary Lake, they had a whole bunch of what I viewed silly requirements. One of them, for instance, was we had to do certain things to remove bird feces, in this case, ducks and geese. Well, I can't imagine ducks or geese in a splash park, but you never know. But pigeons and so on. So, is that being considered? Have you referenced that? Thank you.
So through your worship, we're aware that we're obviously going to have to meet the requirements of Northern Health. A recycling system, obviously, which we proposed due to the reduced consumption of water, has that requirement to have certain parameters met because you've essentially got a treatment system And so there's things that come with that. Flow-through systems, which use an immense amount of water, have far less requirements. Yeah, we're aware of that. Not sure if we'd have to get a construction permit with Northern Health in order to construct, likely. So again, there'd be those checks and balances throughout. But yeah, we're certainly aware.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to the CEO, you mentioned a parking lot in the old playground area. Is that not in the flood zone as well then?
So through your worship, we're talking about the playground 110th?
At Ken Park.
Yes, at Ken Park. So no, that is above the flood zone. As the farther east you get, the channel becomes much deeper and more confined. So it's not in the flood area there. Now, during heavy rains, you might have some water pooling in areas, but the creek itself in that area, I don't believe, spills into that playground area.
Even with it being the lowest point in that area?
Yeah.
Okay. Just thinking off of Councillor Parslow's point there about the recycle system and that. So we've heard from the Mile Zero Park Society that the Misting Park previously on their recycle system with the tank, they used to have to shut down for days at a time on a regular basis because of contaminants to that. Would we anticipate the same type of shutdowns? Are we just going to infuriate a public by building a splash park that they cannot use because we have to use a recycle system?
So through your worship, those would be discussions we'd have obviously as we go through and procure the equipment. I don't know specifically. I know they had issues at the Rotary Park dealing with, I suspect, a considerably smaller, less sophisticated system than we would be, because ours is our design or our concept was much larger. Also, it's newer. But again, yeah, no, I mean, those are things that we have to ask those questions. I don't know whether it was the equipment. I know they had problems with electronics. Was it how it was operated? No idea. I don't have those details, but those are things that, yeah, you'd want to know. You certainly want to do this and then have it shut down. Is there going to be backwashing and all that? Yes. But you would hope that the system is somewhat automated and can do that in off hours, down times, those sorts of things.
But those are hopes. Those aren't things we know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Chelsea, if she was here, she may know because she's done a lot of the research on the system side. She's not in though.
It would just, if this passes, it would be really, really sad to have a beautiful, nice splash park that, because we are forced to be on a recirc system that sits there not being able to be used, that is shut down on a regular basis due to contaminants. That'd be very sad.
Yeah, and through your worship, I mean, I think in today's world, I would assume more and more people are moving towards recirc systems simply out of not, wanting to waste water. So I would think that these challenges have been contemplated. And again, when we go to, if we were ever to get to that point and we were moving down that path, we would want to ensure that whatever system we're getting is reliable, serviceable, and provides the best experience for the folks, for the public.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I'll just add, we've had a lot of conversations around this, and for myself, I appreciate all the dialogue from everybody here, and I can understand both sides. For me, I look at reaching out to the community, and we're each here for our own reasons, and that's fine. That's what this is about. We're voted in for those reasons, and I'm here for myself because I believe I want to do what's best for our community and move it forward. And for me, I'm in favor of the splash park for that sole reason that this went out to the community. We asked
900 people responded. Majority of them were in favor of this. Like Councillor Earl said, he has an opinion too, and he tries to sit here and do what's best for the community. And I feel the same as that. And I'm not questioning anybody else or how you have your opinion. This is just mine. I am in favor of the splash park because I believe that the community has spoke since 2010, and we put it out there. We talked about tax increase. 81% were in favor of the tax increase. I think we said $120,000. Rotary, Mile Zero Park Society, when they were in here, said it cost them $40,000 a year when they were operating there. So, I know there'll be some learning to it, but I believe in the $120,000. I just our community has been adamant about it, and there's a lot of people passionate about it. And I also take into the consideration of all the other pressures we face in business and life, because I face those myself. And believe I'm doing a good job as a mayor, and this council is too, is holding ourselves accountable. And we've been very frugal on what we've been spending. And I know this office has been, and in the city team, we've saved a lot of funds in a lot of different areas, and I'll continue to do that. And I'll always put that first. But as far as the splash park goes, I am in favor of it. So I'm not going to add much more. I know we've had a lot of dialogue. Is there any other new discussion? Councillor Earl?
Just to be clear on the motion on the floor, we are going to have two motions where we rescind the previous motion and then put the new motion forward. We're just doing one single motion where we change it out. I just want to make sure we don't have a voting snafu again.
Yeah, no, I wanted to clarify after the last discussion, but the motion that we will be voting on the floor right now is that council approve the remaining funds from the Growing Communities Fund towards the trail development projects that include but are not limited to Kin Park Lighting and Rotary Trail, MUP 17th Street Bypass. So we're voting on the Growing Community Funds right now going to the trail development. So just for clarity, if that's not what your intent is and you want to do the splash park, we would, and then you would vote against this motion. If then that motion is defeated, then I'll propose the next motion, which is in my recommendation, which would be to move forward. So just for clarity, if you are in favor of the splash park, you will vote against. You would vote no to the motion that's on the floor, and then the motion for the splash park will come. And yeah, is everybody clear on that? Does that help, Councillor Earl? Clarifying? Okay. Make sure I didn't confuse it more than. All right, if there's no more discussion, I'm going to call the motion on the floor, which is the council approve the remaining funds from the Growing Community Fund towards trail development projects that include but are not limited to Kin Park Lighting and Rotary Trail MUP 17th Street Bypass. Vote is closed, and it's defeated. Councillor Apollonio, Councillor Earl, Councillor Kaempf, and myself are opposed. I will now put forward the motion that council approve the $2.95 million from the Growing Communities Funds towards the Splash Park project. Further, that upon the park's opening, an additional tax increase be incorporated into a future budget to cover all operational costs. And finally, any remaining Growing Community Funds be allocated to trail development projects. Have a second? Councillor Kaempf, any discussion? No? I'll call this motion. Motion is carried. Our motion is closed. It's carried. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Parslow, and Councillor Sudnick were opposed. All right, our next order of business is 11.3. We have a memo from Mayor Dober regarding addition of LGLA form to the annual conference attendance policy. Councillor Parslow.
I move that one member of council be approved to attend the 2025 LGLA Leadership Forum with cost to be paid from the 2025 council conferences and travel budgets. Further, that the conference attendance council policy be updated to include the annual attendance of the LGA Leadership Forum.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Kaempf, any discussion? Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff. On our conference attendance and travel budget, how close are we to using it on a regular basis?
If we don't have the number, I remember like asking in the fall of this previous year we just finished and last year, and we were getting close. I didn't get the actual number, so. I don't know.
So through your worship, Melissa's just taking a look. We'll see if we can pull that up for
Okay.
you.
Go ahead, Melissa.
So through your worship to Councillor McDonald, sorry, I'm just going to highlight certain, for the mayors and councils separate, but I'll just maybe do councils. Travel and accommodation, the budget for 2024 was 37,000 and spent was 42. So went over $5,000 in 2024. In 2023, the budget was 35,000 and spent was 20,000, but then you likely were still in COVID potentially restrictions. I'm not sure, but I would assume there was reduced travel during that year. And then you get into years where certainly probably COVID impacted the budget. So I think probably your best estimate would be 2024, because the data I have in front of me only goes back to 2021.
In 2024, we added a couple conferences too. There was the Growing the North one, I believe the First Nations one too was actually in Toronto that year. And then I thought there was one other that we added, but yeah. Does that answer your questions, Councilor Don?
When we go in place of the mayor, does that still come out of the mayor's budget then, or is it still come out of council then?
So through your worship, that I don't know for certain.
Through your worship to Councillor McDonald, I don't necessarily know that answer, but what I could provide to you is that if we looked at the travel and accommodations for the mayor, I guess I could just consider all four together, but the budget for the mayor in 2024 was 16,500 and spent was 9,000. So there was a little, almost, if you were to add all four together, you're probably right on target. And for clarity, that's just travel and accommodation expenses. I'm not necessarily sure whether the registration goes to conventions and delegations, so that maybe needs to be considered in there as well. But quickly looking, both of those were under budget for 2024.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor
Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll call this motion. One more, please, or two more? Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, next order of business, 12, Chief Administrative Officer operational update. Where are you, Kevin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of quick updates. As always, a quick update on the Kiskatna River and water. Levels of the river are stable, still right at the top of the weir, just going over the weir, which has been, is consistent with this time of year. We are in a far better place than we were this time last year. But this is really due to the fact that we've released water from Bear Hole, so that's keeping us steady for now. So that's good. Usage is pretty much on spot. What we'd expect. We're at 5,500, 6,000 cubes a day. So we haven't seen any big uptick from any other use. So that's good. Reservoirs are 95% 80% kind of full. So again, everything's maintaining where we would like it. The only other thing I was going to mention is that most people should have received their assessment notice in the mail, depending on whether Canada Post is a little bit behind or not. I don't know, but they're out there. You can certainly view them online. I did. I actually haven't received mine, but I did go online, and so for Dawson Creek, the average was a 2% increase across the board. Some, which is good because that's what we had anticipated within the budget. I did look around at a few other communities in the region, and I know some smaller communities saw. I think one community was up 13% on average. So, but again, different dynamics and whatnot. So, but Dawson Creek average 2%. So. That's good. Good to know. And and I think you mentioned it earlier, Your Worship, just the February 10th budget consultation, just again, and just an encouragement for people that are out there to take an interest and take some time to get some questions in or take part. So, and more information will be coming on that as we get closer.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to maybe something out to the public. You just touched on the BC assessment, and I'm just stealing this from Melissa because she brought it up when we did our roundtable. But because of the Canada Post delays, some of those assessments are late getting out. So those that are out there, I believe it's the end of January, you have to dispute with BC assessment. And because some of those are delayed, you might not be able to get that. So just recommending, this is not our avenue. This is just a kindly gesture out to the community that you can go online and get your BC assessment. And you might want to do that just so that if there is some discrepancies, you still have time to dispute it before it comes, before you get it. So I haven't received mine as well. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Melissa, or did that cover?
Through Your Worship, no, I think that covers it, but just additional for information for council, we are looking at putting out some communication as well through our social media, just an awareness piece to residents. And you're right, that's a BC assessment, but it'll be good just to remind people of that and the appeal deadline. So that'll be going out here soon.
Thank you. Any other questions? I didn't cut you off, Kevin. You were done, right? Yeah, okay. Perfect. Thank you for the update. All right, next order of business diary. Nothing in the diary. 14 consent calendar. Did anybody want to remove anything from the consent calendar? Oh, I get a motion to accept the consent calendar. Councillor Kaempf, second. Councillor Apollonio. I'll call that motion to vote. Vote is closed and it's carried. Next, media questions. Media here. 16, recess to close. 16.1, resolution to move into meeting council of close to the public. For agenda item 4.1 and 4.3, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages. Agenda item 4.2, section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, and expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. Agenda item 5.1, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provisions of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages. And section 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and the provincial government. Motion, Councillor Earl, second. Councillor McDonald. I'll call that to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, thanks everyone.